It is a Monday edition of Inside Cowboys Training Camp, driven by Ford here from Oxnard, California. Alongside Mickey Spagnola and Britt Johnson, I'm Kyle Youmans as we wrap up another practice for the Dallas Cowboys here in Training Camp 2022. And well, they had a day off on Sunday, Mickey, but you go back to Saturday, it was a defensive dominant practice. Did the offense return the favor today?
Maybe the trip to the beach helped out the offense, because I thought the offense really turned it on today. Not just throwing the ball, but I thought the run blocking was much better. I think we saw some big runs from Zeke, from the other running backs too. So yeah, I think they responded. And again, remember, this is only the fifth practice in pads. So the offensive line needs pads on, and I think they're starting to pick up. I really like what Tyler Smith's doing. He rarely gets pushed back. He's pushing guys back 5 yards in that run game. So that's a big bonus for this team with the new guy.
Will it just come with these padded practices, or how can the offensive team get firepower, gain firepower? Is it just with these practices that they're having?
Well, we have to remember they're breaking in a bunch of new receivers, right? It takes time. This is practice. It's not a game. And we'll find out more when they practice against Denver later in the week. We'll find more when they play the preseason games. But the other thing is they're still installing plays. So I'll guarantee you the defense kind of knows what's going on, right? And they're not calling plays to beat them. They're calling plays to practice them. And I think that's one thing everybody needs to understand this early in training camp. I mean, they still got 3-4 weeks to go before they play a game, right?
Yeah, plenty of time to figure things out. And you mentioned the young receivers. There's a couple of returners that are starting to shine. Specifically, I'm going to focus on Noah Brown. He had a great practice today, but throughout training camp so far, has he shown enough to be that second wide receiver underneath CeeDee Lamb?
I don't know about the second wide receiver, but I know that he's doing enough to make the team again. Now, he's done this before in training camp, and then they get into the season and somewhere he gets lost in the shuffle. So can he at least be the third receiver, I think, at this point? And I think he's shown that, but if we watch practice and how they're rotating the wide receivers, when they go out with the first team guys, he's still not in the top three. Dennis Houston's been in front of him. So if he keeps doing what he did today and what he did Saturday, they're going to have to rethink that.
So would you say Dennis Houston is that wide receiver 2 at the moment?
I would think he's wide receiver 3 and Jalen Tolbert's wide receiver 2. Wow. CeeDee Lamb is wide receiver number 1.
Easy.
And then we'll see what happens when you get James Washington and Michael Gallup back.
Yeah, you would love to have those veterans in the fold, but at least the young wide receivers getting valuable reps and taking strides. That's what training camp is all about.
Absolutely.
Special thanks to Mickey Spagnola for joining us here in this first segment. When we come back, how can Sam Williams learn from Micah Parsons' rookie season?
Inside Cowboys Training Camp, presented by Ford, is brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the Dallas Cowboys. And by Ford F-Series, the best-selling truck in Texas. This segment is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys.
With the expectations that Micah Parsons set last season, it can't help but be compared to Sam Williams, a second-round draft pick out of Ole Miss who is known for rushing the passer, but there are some different ways he's learning in this first season and his first training camp.
Absolutely. We heard a lot from him about, who he's been learning from on the field and off the field as well, but take a look at what his expectations are for this upcoming season. Today I have second-round draft pick Sam Williams. All right, so when you got drafted, the Cowboys are kind of using you as a defensive end, leaning on you to take some of the spot of Randy Gregory, who was our defensive end last season. We lost him in free agency this year. How does that make you feel as a rookie? Pressure at all?
It don't make me feel like pressure, but I just feel very special because watching him last year, he's a very talented player, great player. And for them to choose me to replace that is very an honorable thing. So I take that to heart.
We're excited to see what you have to do this year. Speaking of that, we have tons of defensive leaders on this team. A lot of guys you can pick their brains. Who do you go to most to get your defensive knowledge?
I wouldn't say most. I really just ask from everybody because I kind of play the interior some too. So I ask the older guys like Nev, Osa, then on the outside, D-Law, or a bash. Like, it's just I try to get everybody, like even the coaches, so even the offensive line. So it's just I'm just trying to learn as much as I can.
See, I love what he says right there, and that is really the true definition of complementary football, when your offense can help out your defense, you know, in training camp, you know?
And he's not the only one that talks about that specifically. When we come back, Zach Martin even goes into it, talking about the growth of a young offensive line. Still plenty of time for these guys to get up to speed, but it's the defensive front that is making things tough and making them better on that offensive line. When we come back with more Inside Cowboys Training Camp, driven by Ford.
This segment was brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys.
And this year, I mean, it seemed like this defense has just gotten better and better.
Yeah, they are, and you know, obviously this will be the second year with DQ and some of the things we're doing and the personnel, and it's tough to go against, especially on third down. They got, you know, they've been playing these packages with 5 D linemen and Micah, so you got 6 rushers on the field, and there's only 5 linemen, so you got to kind of, all right, who are you going to leave for the back? Because if you leave 11 on the back, you know, you can be in some trouble, and vice versa. You leave a D lineman on the back, so it poses a lot of challenges for us, but it's great that we're getting to see this stuff in camp and these reps.
It's frustrating for y'all to see, but you can see what kind of problems it creates.
Oh yeah, that's a good way to put it, because I think obviously when we watch the tape, there's things that we need to get better on. A lot of the stunt, I mean, they're stunting from all over the place, but it's great work for us to get that live speed action against these caliber of players.
When Rod was here, as they lined up and played, right? You knew everybody's going to be. Yeah. There's a few times out there today, there's no one with their hand on the ground.
No, and that's been a difficult part too. They kind of float. We call them kind of floaters with the D linemen. You know they're rushing for the most part, but you know when they're 5-6 yards off the ball, it's a little bit of a different mindset for an O-lineman because they're not on top of you right now. So it's been difficult through camp, but I think we're getting better, and again, it's great for us to see those kind of things.
It's the final segment of Inside Cowboys Training Camp, driven by Ford here in Oxnard, California. We are closing in on the first preseason game coming up on Saturday against the Denver Broncos. Back here with Britt Johnson, I'm Kyle Youmans. Now, Britt, we just heard from Zach Martin, brought to you by Sleep Number, talking about how this defensive front, being so deep, being so talented, it's really helped the offensive line growth. Have you seen that growth so far?
Absolutely, and again, Mickey talked about it earlier. At the beginning of camp, we couldn't really see what the offensive line was going to do because they didn't have pads on, and you know, without pads, they're not really doing a whole lot. So seeing their growth this last week has been amazing, and I can't stress enough how much they need to stay healthy this season. Last year, Tyler Biadasz was the only player on the offensive line to start all 17 games. So I think it's really going to be the continuity we see, the consistency we see. These guys aren't lacking in talent. It's just being able to stay healthy and playing as a unit together, because the offensive line is one space where it's like, you know, they're lining up, you can feel the other guy breathing next to you. You have to get the footwork right. You have to get everything together, and you guys have to be one unit in that space. So I think if they're able to do that and start beginning of season to end of season with the same line, they're unstoppable.
It's so hard to stay healthy up front, but that's where really I think the concern lies with this offensive line. It's not even just the youth of the offensive front, but it's the depth. Have you seen some of the guys below the starters that have impressed you so far?
You know, unfortunately, the guy that I was rooting for the most, we haven't been able to see a lot, which is Willetsko.
Yeah.
I think that's a guy that will probably still make the team and be able to be an impact later on. But other than that, besides the guys that are there, and you know, the switching of Tyler Smith in there a little bit, which he has actually gotten a lot better in the last few days, I'm excited to see these guys.
Should be fun to watch, and that offensive line finally going to get a good test against somebody else coming up later in the week when they travel to Denver. For Britt Johnson, I'm Kyle Youmans. That does it for us on this edition of Inside Cowboys Training Camp, driven by Ford.
Inside Cowboys Training Camp, presented by Ford, was brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the Dallas Cowboys. And by Ford F-Series, the best-selling truck in Texas.